still a great way to grip us, to get us interested in your idea to begin with. So I discovered, or I experienced, or became interested in this, and when that happened, well, I thought, what if? So I'm interested right now in hearing a couple of your inspirations, and I would like to actually hear them verbally through your microphone. So what I would ask is for you to raise your hand if you're interested in what your inspiration was, okay? And then once I say your name, I'll ask you to hit your microphone, pitch me your inspiration, and then turn your microphone off. So, would anybody like to go? Anybody want to raise their hand? Okay, I think we've got, no? Okay. We've got Martin. Hi, Martin. Feel free to tell me what your inspiration is. Hmm. Okay, I'm not hearing you. Press your microphone. Oh, hi.
Hello,
Hi.
hello.
Hello. Hi, Martin. How are you?
There you go. Hi, everyone. Well,
Hi.
this was inspired by real events, actually. Back ago, a few years ago, when the scriptwriter and director was touring through India after a festival. And talking with him, we started to think, what if this happened in our home in Buenos Aires, in our class, social and economic class, and what twist, what will be the consequences of this kind of story, this rape story that we saw and we heard in Goa, India.
Excellent, excellent. So the thing that I would ask you to do is when you're pitching that inspiration, you would have to use that word. You'd have to say, this was based on uh, news I heard about a real rape event, and then go on to say what the what was from it. So but I for that at the end of your inspiration. Thank you. I believe there's somebody else who we've got Teles. Hi, are you there, Teles? Okay, would you uh, like to pitch to me your inspiration? And all you have to do is press your microphone. No, I'm not hearing you. Is your microphone on? Yes, you can write it. Okay. While Teles is writing it, I'm going to talk a little bit more about next element of it, okay, which is about my project. So the idea here is that use your inspiration, which is I discovered or experienced or became interested in, and when that happened, I thought, to now segue you into talking about your project. Now, this next part says, have a genre plus medium in the vein of it's called and it's about. Okay. And okay. Before we move on, we've got Teles here, and this is Teles's inspiration. And I'm so sorry if I mispronounce the names. I'm so American in my pronunciation, it's embarrassing. Okay, so Tellez writes, I knew a person called Angel. He was a retired boxer, and the first thing he told me was, I'm caught here in this gym for years ago. I want to go back with my family to Spain, and to my family in Spain. So that's great. I love the fact that you locked right onto this person and what that person said to you and how that now inspires you. So Tellez wrote, what if Angel could accomplish his dreams? Okay, great. So this is a real person that got you into talking about your project. And this is, as you can see, a great way to grip somebody involved because it's rooted in fact, and now we're in the story. So about my project, genre plus medium. What do I mean by that? I mean, what is this, a romantic comedy? Is this a uh, courtroom thriller? Um, make sure that you're giving the genre plus medium in a way that describes the tone and the feel. So you have, let's say, a courtroom thriller. Now you want to say in the vein of a similar movie or TV show. Now in this case, of course, it's movies that we're talking about. The reason that I suggest that you compare it to something in the vein of is because we need to know what it looks and there, because there are different kinds of courtroom thrillers or dramatic or romantic comedies or epic dramas. If you can compare it to a movie that we understand, we're going to have a vision in our head of the look and the feel. This does not have to match the premise, okay? It does not have to match the premise. So it does not have to have the same idea. Next part is it's called title, and it's about logline. Now, as far as your logline goes, that's a one sentence depiction of the main idea, a one sentence description of the main idea. And you, as producers, are probably always dealing in the logline. That one sentence that gives the hook and it gives the heart. In this case, since it's just the beginning of the pitch, your job is just to tell us what it's about. It's about what? Now, in this case, try not to just pitch out the theme. Most people make that mistake of saying it's called so-and-so and it's about love conquering all. And the problem is that every movie is about love conquering all, so we still don't understand what your movie is. And in a short pitch situation, it's really important for us to actually understand the main idea up front so that you're not talking and talking and talking and eventually getting to your idea, and by doing so making us think that you've got a completely different idea and even being disappointed by the time that you get to the central idea. This way, by saying what it's about up front, we'll understand it. So, for that reason, I would love to hear this part of it. I have a genre plus medium in the vein of a similar movie. It's called Title, and it's about logline. And if we do this verbally, for those who would like to pitch their inspiration as well, before they get there, that's fine. But all I'm looking for is what's on the first page. So, would anybody like to pitch to me their inspiration plus about my project, okay? Or just the about my project part? Okay, Mauricio. Okay, Mauricio, you can get on your microphone. Okay, it's not working. All right, Mauricio, if you can write it quickly, why don't you just write the log line? It's about what? What is it about? Ah, Voices of Kidnapping is a biographical crime thriller in the vein of Spotlight. It tells the story of a war correspondent who starts a radio station to speak to kidnapping victims in the Colombian jungle and finds himself playing a deadly game between the kidnapping rings and the even deadlier police force. Very, very well done. I love this. I love the fact that you give me the genre, the crime thriller. You told me what it's like, Spotlight, which is very, very specific. You told me who the main character was, a war correspondent. You told me what he does. He starts a radio station in order to speak to the Colombian jungle, which gives stakes right away. And you're giving me a sense even of the second act, and finds himself playing a deadly game between the kidnapping rings and the even deadlier police force. What works about this is even if you mess up the rest of your pitch, you've got you've got the hook and the heart right up front. We know what it's about and we're gripped. This would make me want to read more and to find out more. Very, very good. Does anybody else want to tell me about my project? Okay, Teles, and again, you can cut and paste just like Mauricio did if I can't hear you through the microphone. For those of you who filled out the pitch sheet, have it with you if it's possible to cut and paste. That would be great. Okay, so Teles says, and it's about a retired boxer who has to go back to boxing to meet again with his family. On that road, he discovers that he's out of debt with heart. So, yeah, I think that it works. I think the idea that he is this retired family that has a lot of debts within his own heart is very good, and it's a great launching place for the rest of the pitch. Would anybody else like to go before I move on to the next element? Okay, Martin. Martin, you can go for it. Okay, so I'm not hearing you through the mic. So if you want to cut and paste.
Here. It's
Oh,
called, hello. It's called The Silent Party, and it's about
hi. I can't
Laura.
hear you.
Okay, I'll write it.
Oh, no, I can't hear you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's called The Silent Party, and it's about Laura, who is brutally raped hours before her marriage, provoking a bloody revenge.
Excellent. Excellent. Very good. Okay, terrific. Thank you very much uh, to all three of you, Martin, Mauricio, and Teles. I'm going to move on. Oh, I've got Diana. Great. Okay, Diana, try your microphone first, and if we can't hear you, then please cut and paste into the chat. It's called The False Prophet, and it's about a mediatic journalist forced to deceive his audience and provoke an internal uprising. Okay, I'm not sure mediatic that means, but that could just be because I'm dumb. But it's about a something journalist forced to deceive his audience and provoke an internal uprising. I get it. I think that it works very, very well. Good. I can take one more log line before we move on. Anybody? Okay. So I'm going to move on to the plot summary. So oh, you're welcome, Diana. So what works about having the plot summary following the log line is that we can now lift off of where you are. You don't have to go back in and reset. You don't have to go back in and tell us the first act. You've already told us what this is about, what the hook is. So that's why you want to lift up from there, and now the plot to follow. Now, in this case, I put the main character and the supporting character. But honestly, it's up to you. If your project really only focuses on your main character, by all means, just put him or her. If your project does focus on the two of them, what's nice about saying the main character and the supporting character is that this creates a natural subplot when you actually focus on the supporting character as well, when it comes up. Now, if it's an ensemble, you could describe your main characters as an ensemble. So, for example, you could say, the project continues to follow a group of retired bank robbers, and that would be absolutely fine. So it's really up to you. The next part is as they second act activity. Now, as they do something, not as they think or feel or plan, but as they actually do something. Okay, that's important because so many people will pitch out that people are thinking about things and keep the project from feeling active. So, for example, um, in Diana's case, she's already told me that The False Prophet is about a journalist forced to deceive his audience and provoke an internal uprising. So in the plot summary, it wouldn't be all about they plan an internal uprising. Instead, in the plot summary, in the second act, we would find out what that internal uprising looked like. What did they do? What were the complications that follow? So that gets to the next part of this, which is problems occur when there's a midpoint case or a second act low point. Well, what do I mean by that? I mean that um, even when a character is doing something in an interesting way, we need some kind of pushback. So getting this problem that usually occurs in the middle of your movie or at that second act low point is important for the pitch because we know that there's something even more exciting that is going to come back that is going to create obstacles for your main character or characters. So far we've got the project continues to follow main character and supporting character as they actually do something, second act activity. And problems occur when midpoint complication or second act low point. So just hearing this so far, problems occur when, I would just like to hear these first three lines. The project continues to follow these characters as they second act activity. Problems occur when. For anybody who would like to pitch to me just those three elements, I'd love to hear them now. Again, raise your hand, okay, if you would like to do this. Okay, tell us. You can cut and paste it directly in. And then after that, we'll have Andres. So tell us, please, first. Okay. I've got the project continues. The question is, can I put the project continues or since as the, tell us, use whatever words work for you to continue this, to tell the story. Okay, here we
Uh,
go.
Pilar, I think she's asking if she should start from the project continues to follow, or if she should start from as they.
Oh, I'd like, well, I think what she has here is working. Um, okay, so Angel has to come back to Colombia to accompany his sick mother, and the only way to stay alive is to return to boxing. Problems occur when Angel decides to take a rematch with the man who took him out of boxing. Very good. I would say that um, I would want you to add even more to uh, the fact that the only way to stay alive is to return to boxing. I want to make sure that I understand why that's a big problem. Is the only way to stay alive is to return to the vicious world of boxing, uh, to boxing, a sport that almost hurt him in the past? Ah, so you're saying it's about money. Um, well, I understand that that's why he wants to do it, but I want to understand also like some of the peril that's involved. So I think you can put both of those things in there, okay? And then problems occur when Angel decides to take a rematch with the man who took him out of boxing. So I would imagine took him out of boxing in a violent way, took him out of boxing and hurt him in the past. So it's okay to get few more of those details in, but this is definitely keeping you on point, which I like, and I'm able to see the most of the story unfold. Very good. So Andres, I'm going to go to you. Andres, try your microphone, or you can cut and paste. Okay, so I'm not hearing anything through your microphone. So you can cut and paste it in. Okay, great. Thank you, Andres. Here we go. Kachimalo does not want to be a musician. He wants to be a samurai. That is why he burns the father's sacred instrument, the marimba of the spirits. This desecration awakens his ancestors who guide him. Okay, so he doesn't want to be a musician. He wants to be a samurai. That's why he burns his father's sacred instrument, the marimba of the spirits. This desecration awakens his ancestors who guide his ancestors to reconcile him with his own identity. Okay, so Andres, okay, I like the fact that he doesn't want to be a musician and wants to be a samurai, and then he burns the instruments. I think that's very clear. And so this desecration awakens his ancestors. Okay, so before telling us that they do something positive, who guide him to reconcile with his own identity, I want to know more pushback. I want to know, once this awakens his ancestors, is there an even bigger problem that occurs? Do they create an issue for him? Do they wreak havoc? Do they force him to do something new? I want even more elements of the story to unfold before you give me the beginning of the happy ending. Okay? So right now, you're telling me, what he doesn't want to do and what he does do, which is to burn this sacred instrument, and that clearly it awakens the ancestors, but I want more activity from them in terms of how they act out on their own disappointment. Okay. All right, Gabriel, this is Ivana Comes Home. Gabriel, you can try through your microphone, okay? Or you can cut and paste. Okay, Gabriel's cut and paste and writes, the project continues to follow Ivana as she returns to her homeland in Colombia after living for 10 years in Mexico, and she has to deal with conservative traditions of her family, especially when she has to introduce them to her little daughter, Paulina. Okay, Gabriel, very good. I want to make sure, because I don't know if I heard your log line first. I want to make sure that the second act doesn't reflect the log line too much, that it is something new that you're bringing out within the pitch. Assuming that your log line was different, you would then tell me the project continues to follow Ivana as she returns to her homeland and has to deal with the conservative traditions of her family. Okay, so assuming that this isn't already in your log line, I'm seeing, some activity with having to deal with conservative traditions of her family. But give me some examples of that. She has to deal with the conservative traditions of her family and list them, such as this, that, and the other thing. Because when you say the conservative traditions of her family, that might be very different from the conservative traditions of, let's say, a family that I'm familiar with. So don't let me use my imagination. You tell me some of those specific things, because that will build the movie out even more. Okay? Okay, going to Martin. Okay, Martin, tell me a little bit more about your pitch. Okay. Martin writes, the project continues to follow Laura, her fiance Daniel, and her father Leon as they prepare the wedding party. Problems occur when she is raped in the dark forest before the ceremony. Okay, now you already told me in the log line about the rape and that it happens right before the wedding. So Martin, what I'd be looking for in your pitch is even more. Um, Tell me what happens after this rape occurs. Okay, do they set out to avenge? Um, what are the reactions of people? There's more story here. I think in this description, you're just elaborating on what I already know. So this is your opportunity to go past the rape to what actually happens beyond that. Okay, Diana, I'm going to hear a little bit more from you. Diana writes, the project continues to follow Manuel, a journalist, as he is forced to provoke a coup in exchange of his brother's freedom. Okay, very good. I like the fact that I'm hearing something new from you, Diana, and it's getting much bigger, which is great. Mauricio, let's see what you have to say. Mauricio writes, the project continues to follow Herben as he infiltrates the multi-billion-dollar kidnapping mafia in Colombia. Problems occur when our hero unmasks a kidnapping network that operates from inside of one of Colombia's high-security prisons in association with a deeply entrenched conspiracy of high-level corrupt police officers from the very elite tactical kidnapping response team of the police. Very good, Mauricio. You're packing this pitch with story, and I'm really seeing it unfold. Great job. Great job. Okay, Mariana, let's go to you. Okay, Mariana. Okay. She writes, okay, Mariana writes, she's writing, I'm having trouble as my story is not 100% story driven. Well, all stories are driven by their story. So I wouldn't worry. If what you're worried about is that you don't have, huge plot points, that's okay because we're still watching on screen and we're watching people make choices. So simply telling me about some of those new choices is still pitching. So let's see what you have here. You have a feature film drama in the vein of Beasts of the Southern Wild. It's called Ceniza Negra, and it's about Selva, an 11-year-old girl growing in the midst of her family's disintegration. The project continues to follow Selva, her brother, and her grandfather after the death of Elena, her motherly figure. Problems occur when her brother decides to leave and her grandfather lets go of his will to live. As she gets closer to the magical world of the dead, she must learn to let go in order to help her grandfather pass away. And you also write, as she gets closer to the magical world, oh, you already wrote that. Okay. So I think that this is very good, Mariana. As far as expanding it more and bringing in even more exciting things, when you say it's about Selva, an 11-year-old girl growing up in the midst of her family's disintegration. You could you could describe a little bit more of what that disintegration means. Is it an economic disintegration? Is it a disintegration due to war? Give me a little bit more of that, and I'll be able to see the movie a little bit more. You say the project continues to follow Selva, her brother, and her grandfather after the death of Elena, her only motherly figure. Give me as they do something, okay? You say it continues to follow her. It's not that we're just following her face. So clearly, Selva and her brother have to do something after this. Do they have to survive on their own? Do they have to do things to get money? There's definitely activity in there that you're skipping over. And you have problems occur when her brother decides to leave and her grandfather lets go of his will to live. Okay, that's working for me. Just make sure that your second act activity gives me a little bit more about the actions that take place. Very, very good. Okay, so I'm going to move on. Oh, you're welcome. I'm going to move on a little bit to talking about the world. Now, world building is very important, especially if you have a world that we've never seen on screen before. Now, this could be a sci-fi world, or it could be a world that is from another time where perhaps the audience doesn't necessarily know the specifics. So if I said, it takes place in the world of post-World War II Los Angeles. Okay, well, even though we've seen Los Angeles on screen in many American movies, we may not necessarily know what the world of post-World War II Los Angeles looks like or feels like. And when we're talking about the world, we're not only giving a sense of the environment, we're also giving the rules of the world. And I'd like you to pay attention for a moment to the kind of rules that a world has. And I think you might be surprised by it because it's not just the geography. When I'm talking about the rules of the world, I'm talking about things like what is the new normal? What is it common to see in the world? So, for example, let's say that you were doing the world of a small town church, okay? That we're making that small town church your world. Here, it might be common to see priests in a fist fight. Okay, now, in other people's small town churches, it might not be common to see priests in a fist fight, but in yours, it might be. Okay, so again, the first world to think about is your new normal. What is it common to see in this world? Another world rule to think about is what language is spoken here. Now, I don't mean necessarily English or Spanish. I mean, what language in terms of the passions of the people in the world or the interests of the people in your world. For example, in this world, finance is spoken here. Or in this world, comic books are spoken here. Or in this world, um, uh, uh, the language of war is spoken here. Okay? So we've got two rules to think about now. What is it common to see in this world? And what language do people speak? Another world rule to think about is who's in charge? What are the power dynamics? Here, the students might be in charge. Okay? Here, the workers are in charge. Okay? So in the world of your script, of your project, the power dynamics might be different from any other place that we've ever seen. So that's another one to think of. Okay? And then the last thing to think of is what's the tone? So you could say in this world, romance is everywhere. In this world, danger is everywhere. So I hope that makes sense. We've got 4 different world rules you can think about. One is, what is it common to see? Another is, what language is spoken here? Another is, who's in charge? And then the final one is what is the tone? So in your pitch template, okay, right? And I just realized I haven't brought up the second part of this. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Oops. Oops. Oh no. Juan Pablo?
Hello, Pilar. Yeah.
Did I cut us off by accident?
I think you cut out the presentation, the template. You can share it again.
Shoot. Okay.
I'm turning the pages for you because I
Oh,
noticed.
you are? Oh, thank
Yeah.
you so much. Okay, because I was trying. That's what I was trying to do to get back. Shoot.
Yeah, sorry, because I
Okay.
noticed you, but yeah, I was turning it for you, so don't worry.
Thank you. Wonderful. Can you shoot? How do I get back in?
No, you're in. You just need to share your file again. Go to the lower bottom right to
Okay.
share content. It's a square with an arrow pointing to the right. You can click there and just share it again like we did.
Okay. I'm so sorry. So everybody can hear me still?
I can hear you perfectly, so I guess everyone does.
Yeah. Mercy's going, yes! Yes, you stupid person. Yes. Okay. Oh my gosh. All right. So this is the template's back up. All right. And I'm going to go back to chat room. Okay. All right. So sorry guys. I'm much better in person, I have to say. Okay. So going back to the rules of the world. Okay. So for the rules of the world, everybody, now that you understand those four rules, for anybody who now wants to share with me the rules of their world through the pitch template, and you can cut and paste or try verbally, that would be great. Okay, Juan wrote, I can't see the template yet. Okay, I'm going to try and go back without cutting out of the presentation. Okay. Okay. Share content. Your files. And now. Okay. There we go. All right. It's back up. I apologize about that. Okay. Okay, so I'm back in the chat room and the plot summary and the world is up. So anybody okay? Okay. Chat with everybody. Anybody who would like to share the rules of the world, their world with me? Got it. Mauricio, go for it. Okay. Mauricio writes, the movie takes place in the underground multi-billion-dollar kidnapping and extortion mafia in Colombia. Here, corruption, treason, and death rule. Very good. Mauricio, I think it would be okay for you also to tell me what it's common to see. On movies, we have seen mafia before. In this particular mafia for Colombia, I want you to give me something that's a little more specific. So you could say here, corruption, treason, and death rule, and it's often common to see blank. So is it common to see people being executed in the streets? Is it common to see drug deals happen in schools? I need to know what this looks like for you, okay? Going to Teles. Okay, tell us. Oh, and Moiso, you're welcome. Okay, tell us, right? Here, boxers are warriors by nature. Uh, like you fight, you live, and everybody has a hidden wish, but they never speak about them. Very, very nice. I love the fact that also I'm getting such a nice sense of tone from this. I like the phrase, like you fight, you live. I think that worked very well. Okay, good. And as you can see, adding the rules of the world also help you get a sense of tone and also helps you see the movie even more. Very, very good. Okay. All right. I'm going to go to the next slide, which has to do with a character breakdown. Okay. Now, for your next, I'm sorry, we've got Martin, and I think Martin wants to tell me about his world, and that is absolutely fine. Okay, Martin, you write, the movie takes place in Tigre's river delta at Leon's weekend house in the middle of a landscape filled with dense vegetation, canals, and forking paths, where the islanders despise foreigners and are part of a violent nature. Good. I'm getting a nice sense of the visuals. Okay. I also like that you said where the islanders despise foreigners and are part of a violent nature. This is great. This makes me feel the darkness of it all. Okay, good job. I like that. Okay, so I'm going to definitely be giving more people an opportunity to pitch, but I'm going to go to the character breakdown part of this. Now, as I said at the top of this class, you can feel free to use your own wording. You can also feel free to mix and match the elements of this pitch as long as we do get a sense of the log line up front. Sometimes when it comes to characters, people feel that they really want to tell us about the characters more up front. Now, the only danger of going into the intricacies of every character up front is that sometimes you never get to the story. And in a short pitch situation like you will have, you could tell me all about the characters and never tell me about the story, and your pitch is misinterpreted. However, if you feel that the characters, learning about them in their intricacies up front, has to be, then by all means, go for that. Now, if you have given your full story pitch and you have time, you could elaborate more about the characters, and that is what we have here. So just to go through some of the ways that I've helped you describe your characters, you can say your character is, and now you can name them. Before, I was suggesting that you just describe them, but you can name them. And here you can tell me a little bit more about them in terms of their personality and their occupation, or you could give a sense of their flaw and their stage of life. So for example, I could say a striving writer. You could say an exhausted teacher. You could talk about an ambitious college student. So all of these things are personality plus occupation, or flaw plus stage of life. And then you can tell me about their life or their story goal. He or she is this kind of person who wants to, life or story goal. Now, mind you, in your logline and in your story, we may have already gotten a sense of that. So you may not need to elaborate on this with your main character at all. But you could remind us of what this is and then give us a sense of their arc by telling us what happens by the end of the movie. So by the end of the movie, your character has a changed life or a changed story goal. This simply tells us the main arc of your character. So if your character wants something going into your movie, then wants something else at the end of the movie, it gives you a great sense of the arc. So if in your story that you already told us you're not able to give that arc, here is your opportunity to do so. Also, in your story, when you were pitching, you might not have been able to give the intricacies of the other characters. So this could also be your opportunity to do that. Remember, if you've already pitched out the story, they know what it's about. So now you're just giving some more life to the other characters. And that's why in the rest of the character breakdown, I've included other characters include the character name, the role, who's a, description, who wants to, story goal. Now, what I mean by the role is the role that they play in the story. So you could say other characters include Michael, the father, okay, maybe it's the father of main character, the father of Antonia, who's a, now you give a description of that father. You could say who's a controlling tyrant, for example. That might be the description of the father. So other characters include Michael, the father of Antonia, who's a controlling tyrant. And you would give a sense of his goal, who wants to keep Antonia from taking over the family business. Okay, so I'm just making this stuff up. But the idea is we now know his name, we now know his role within the project, we know a description of him in terms of his personality, and we get a sense of his goal for the story, okay? Knowing these things fleshes out your main character and also suggests even more story possibilities. So if you do that for every character is central in the script, then you are giving even more story possibilities for the listener. The good thing is that we're not going into every single subplot, because if we did, it would make for a really convoluted pitch. So that's why you've pitched out the main character's story, you've maybe added the main character's arc, then you've pitched out some of the goals and descriptions of the other characters. Now, you don't have to do this within your story pitch. It might just be that you flesh out your story pitch enough that we get a sense of what's important and you move on to the other elements. But if you're somebody who really feels that the other characters need to be explained and we need to get a sense of some of their other story goals, this would be your opportunity to do this. Okay? If anybody has filled out an additional character breakdown, by all means, feel free to let me know now, okay? And to cut and paste it into the chat or to pitch it through their microphone if they can. Does anybody want to give me character breakdown? Okay, Mauricio says he has dual protagonists. Okay. Now, if you have dual protagonists, Mauricio, when you are pitching your log line, make sure and include them. You can say it's about this person, and you can say who want to do blank. You can put it in the log line, or you can also put it, okay, in the plot summary. Okay, the project continues to follow this person and this person as they do these things. Okay, so you can definitely integrate them into the plot summary. Okay, but if you feel that perhaps the story doesn't necessarily do justice to both characters, you could then go on and tell us more within a character breakdown. Any other questions, or anybody else want to tell me about their character breakdown? All right. Okay, we've got Diana. Okay, Diana, tell me a little bit more. Hey, Diana? Okay, Diana wrote, my main character is Manuel Gonzalez Atia. Again, I apologize for my mispronunciation. And Diana writes, he's an immigrant journalist who wants to find his own identity and place in the world. Okay, can you tell me about some of the other characters, Diana? Or you can tell me about Manuel's arc. In the beginning, he's an immigrant journalist who wants to find his own identity and place in the world. But by the end of the project, tell me more about him, Diana. What will happen to him by the end? By the end of the movie, he achieves more than he expected, but in a different direction. Okay, it's a little vague right now. By the end of the movie, what does he realize? Okay, give me something a little more concrete, Diana, so that we understand that there's more of a specific arc there. You don't have to do it right now. That's just going to be my question to you that you can fill out in the pitch and tell me more when I get there. Okay, Mauricio, give me a little bit more. Right, and this is Mauricio writes, my main characters are Vargas, a handsome but rude young man who just lost his mother to cancer, and Chucky, a chubby and nervous kid who hates his mother's Christian ways. Friends from an early age, they share a love for, oh gosh, Amor Habanas and heavy metal, specifically for Iron Maiden. They both want to have an amazing time in the city they live in as they head to the band's concert. By the end of the movie, they realize that music will be there for them all of their lives, but friendship and family can disappear at any time, and that sometimes you have to sacrifice the things you enjoy the most to truly value what you have. Thank you, I'm getting a great sense of their arc. Other characters include Calavero, the owner of a metal record shop in Bogota, who's an old friend of Vargas's alcoholic father and who has waited 30 years to see Iron Maiden. Okay, very good. Great. Um, it's it's a lot of fun. Make sure, Mauricio, that that your description of the characters. Ah, we've got more here. Sorry. Um, oops. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, we've got Eugenio. Hi, Eugenio. How are you? Okay, you wrote. Okay. Uh, Cachimalo in the Colombian Pacific coast, amidst the sea, the jungle, and the mangrove forest, lives Cachimalo, young man of 12 years, an heir to a long tradition of folkloric musicians. He is fascinated with the samurais and the bits of Japanese culture that he's seen in animated series. While the natives believe in talking to the moon before cracking a coconut or asking permission to the fish before fishing, Cachimalo considers this mere superstition, the cause of the backwardness of his people. That is why he rejects his own culture and believes blindly in Johnny Glindlin, an astute businessman who returns to his hometown with the promise of bringing progress and wealth for all, thanks to Koyugo, a strange radioactive plant used as biofuel. Okay, very good. All right, now you're pitching out the rest of the story. Okay. One night at the festivities and memories of Papa Marimba, the best musician of the coast, Cachimelo refuses to continue the musical legacy of his late father, burns the sacred instrument, the marimba of spirits. The desecration unleashes an apocalyptic storm that brings with it spirits from the beyond. And then you tell me that one of these spirits is Yoshimuro, an ancient samurai that initiates Kachimalo in the way of the warrior, a spiritual journey of self-discovery full of absurd trials and heroic failures, which unintentionally leads Kachimalo to unmask the sinister Johnny Blindlin and the danger he represents for his people. Okay, all right. Finally, Kachimalo awakes from this dream and decides to confront Johnny. Armed with his marimba, guided by the wisdom of his father, and shielded by the singing of his ancestors, Kachimalo discovers the value of his ancestral identity and transforms himself into a true marimba warrior, an authentic samurai with a coconut essence. Okay, very good. I like the way, Eugenio, that you actually put the character description up front and then used it to launch into your story. And you gave me all of the elements of the story. Martin, before I go to you, I'm realizing one thing, and this is for everyone, really I skipped over and is very important to the pitch. I'm going to go backwards for just a second to the plot summary. Okay, if everybody can bear with me for a second, there's one part of the plot summary that I skipped, and it is important. Now, I asked you to tell me about the characters as they do something and the problems that occur. And I also, within that plot summary, is the third act strategy and the consequences. So now that you've given me what they do, okay, and the problems that occur, also remember to tell me what the third act strategy is going into the third act. Now they must do something or face consequences. Now that's important, okay, because we have to know that when we're going into the solution here, they have a way of doing it, the third act strategy, and they have something to lose, the consequences. So now they must third act strategy or face consequences. I got a nice sense of that here, Eugenio, okay, from when you told me that 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 Kachamalo awakes from this dream and decides to confront Johnny, okay? Armed with his marimba, guided by the wisdom of his father, and shielded by the singing of his ancestors, we understand that he is now going to confront Johnny. This is his third act strategy, okay? That is important. So I do apologize for not covering that in the plot summary, but now that we are, I definitely want to make sure that everybody takes note of that, because within your pitch, it's important to know not only what they do in the second act activity, okay, and the problems that come in, but what they go for in the third act. Very, very important. And thank you so much for reminding me of that, Eugenio. Okay, we have moved on to the character breakdown, and so I know that we had somebody, Mauricio or Martin, I think that was Martin, who had, oh, Eugenio, you're welcome. The person, I think it was Martin, who wanted to tell me about his characters. Go for it, Martin. Okay. My main character is Laura. She's in her late 30s, facing the gate of the midlife crisis, who wants to start a family. Dude, she's 30s and she's having a midlife crisis? I'm depressed. Okay. By the end, she shows her own inner cruelty. Other characters include Leon, who is looking for descendants, while Daniel wants to fulfill his desire of protecting Laura, but feels powerless under Leon's demands. Okay. All right. Okay, Martin, when you mentioned that Laura, by the end, she shows her own inner cruelty, okay, make sure that your pitch reflects that. If your pitch hasn't reflected that, you might want to tell me a little bit more about the inner cruelty you're talking about. By the end, she shows her own inner cruelty by doing what? But otherwise, I got a nice sense of it. Okay. All right. Since we did backtrack, oops, oh, you're welcome. Since we did backtrack just a little bit with your plot summary, for anybody who didn't get a chance to pitch me their plot summary alone, okay, with their third act strategy and consequences, I'd love to hear from that person. I know we've been getting some of the same people, so if anybody is now feeling a little bit more brave and wants to just give me their plot summary, which includes the main characters as they second act activity with the problems that occur, and the third act strategy or facing consequences, this would be your opportunity to do so. Okay. If not, I'll move on with the pitch template. Anybody want to do that? Okay. Mauricio? Okay. Okay, Mauricio writes, the project continues to follow Chucky and Vargas as they skip school and prepare to go to Iron Maiden's first ever concert in Colombia by doing some of their favorite things in Bogota. Problems occur when their tickets are stolen and they blame each other for the loss, which ends up in a fist fight between them. Now they must regain each other's trust and find a way into the concert or face the stark reality of missing Iron Maiden and becoming bitter old men like their friend Calavera and Vargas's alcoholic dad. However, what they find out is that friendship is more valuable than any concert or band. That's a lot of fun, Mauricio. Thank you so much. Okay, Teles, let's hear from you. Okay. The project continues to follow Angel and Pineda, who is a trainer, as they come back to Colombia to accompany, as Angel comes back to Colombia to accompany her. And the only way to stay alive is to return to boxing. Problems occur when Angel decides to take a rematch with the man who took him out of boxing in a violent way. And now he must decide if Angel takes the fight, trains hard, and hides to his wife that he's boxing again, or face his comeback home with the big debt of accomplishing the purpose of, okay, I'm a little unclear about this part, or face, but it's just the wording. His mankind. Okay, so Angel, a couple of things, okay, problems occur, the thing about hiding from his wife that he's boxing again, okay, you can add that with the problems occur. Problems occur when Angel decides to take a rematch with the man who took him out of boxing in a violent way, and he must now hide his intention to do so from his wife, okay? Now in the third act strategy, now he must fight, train hard, and face his comeback in a home. And now this part is a little unclear to me, but again, I think it's just the wording. And this is tough, I think, because it's tougher for you all to pitch this than for anybody I work with, because frankly, you have to pitch in both Spanish and in English, and that I don't envy. So just the fact that I'm not understanding what's at stake here, understanding the consequences, doesn't mean that you don't have it. So I think this will be smoothed over a little bit more when I can work with you in person. But tell us, I'm getting a nice sense of your pitch so far. Very, very good job. Okay, so I think everybody is understanding the basic plot summary elements, the world, okay, other ways to break down characters. And now we're going to go into the talking points a little bit. Okay, now these talking points here may come up either when somebody is asking you questions, okay, or it could happen when at the end of your story and character and world pitch, you may even have time to go into these elements. And frankly, I would say that, like I said, you should pick and choose what elements you want to put into your pitch. Story, of course, is the most important thing, but you could skip your character breakdown altogether to get to some of the talking points because you might feel that this sells your project even more. You are producers and you do have people who are going to give you money in front of you. So some of these talking points might be your priority. And if they are, by all means, skip to them as soon as possible. Okay? Now, one thing that I mentioned here is why this project is unlike any in its genre. This might be something that the person that you're pitching to asks you because they may feel that they've seen versions of this script before. They may say, oh gosh, another boxing movie. No offense, okay? They might not say that, so don't worry. I'm just using it as an example. Or they might say, oh, another murder mystery. Why is yours so different? So be prepared to have an example of why it's different. It might be that it's different because of your own unique approach to character. Maybe there's something structurally different. Maybe it's because you use a mixture of live action and animation. Maybe it's a structural approach that no one's used before. Maybe you're telling the story backwards. So be prepared to answer that question, or you can bring it out in your pitch on your own if you want to. This next part here, audiences will love great scenes or set pieces. Now, this term set pieces is something that we use in Hollywood a lot, but what it means is really just a unique scene, that something that you might see in a trailer, something that is active and interesting. And if you feel that after you've pitched your general story, there's one specific scene that you're just dying to tell somebody about, you could bring that into the pitch. But first, make sure that we understand the main elements of your pitch before you do that. Another thing about this great scene or set piece is that you could even integrate that into the second act. So when I say to you, as they do something, you could give an example of a set piece while describing your second act activity. Okay, so if somebody is hunting for buried treasure, for example, you could give a more elaborate example of the way in which they do it, and in doing so, describe a unique scene that we've never seen before. Okay. That set piece could even come into the problems that occur. If you say that the villain tries to stop them, well, talking about a very specific way the villain tries to stop them could lead to discussing a very interesting scene. So sometimes give us a scene that you love after you've pitched out the story, or sometimes you can integrate it into the story. Okay, now this next part, and they'll particularly respond to a theme or a message. Now, the reason that I put this at the end of the pitch template is because so many people already know their theme or message going into their pitch that all that they want to do is tell us what the theme is and what the message is, and it actually makes for a fairly heavy-handed project. It makes you feel that all that the script is a lesson. This way, by telling you about the themes or the messages after you've told me about the story, well, frankly, you may already have brought the theme in. It may already be there. But if you feel that you have more to say about this, this would be your opportunity, where you then go on to say that audiences will particularly respond to a certain theme or a certain message that you want to tell. I see it as a summer blockbuster, small independent, etc. Now, what I mean here is, what kind of movie do you see it as in theaters? Okay? A summer blockbuster, something that's huge, is much different than a small independent movie. And as the producer, you probably have a distinct vision. If this is something you want to add to your pitch, by all means do that. You can also mention demographics if you feel that it will help. Like, let's say that this is a project that you think will particularly appeal to the youth of America, something that you bring in, or the youth of the world. This is something to bring in. Okay, so the project will particularly appeal to a specific demographic. If you feel that talking demographics actually will work against your script, don't bring it in. It's not something to bring out. So this project will particularly appeal to this particular demographic, and you could also say why. Is it because of the themes? Is it because of the visual appeal? Is it because of the tone? You could also talk about the fact that it could appeal on many platforms. My project could easily spin off into a particular web series, or it could be made into a video game or an app. And I know this may sound a little bit silly, but in this world that wants to make money in many different ways, if you feel that your project is particularly suited for a cross-platform approach, that might be something that people are interested in. You might know your audience a little bit better in terms of who's on your jury, and you might know if there's somebody on that jury who might particularly be interested in this aspect. Having looked at your project, I'm not sure if a cross-platform approach is something that I was feeling sort of screamed from the project, but if you do, this could be something that you integrate into your talking points. Now, I'm going to move on to talking about the project goals, okay? And this tells you a little bit more about who you are and who your team is, okay? You could mention that you're a writer or director who specializes in a certain genre and medium. And you can also use this opportunity to introduce your team if you have somebody else with you, okay? You can talk about what they specialize in as well. Some people in a pitch like to do this up front. They want to describe who they are and what they specialize in up front. If you feel that this is a great way in, okay, that's absolutely fine. You could say, I'm this kind of person who specializes in a genre medium, and then you could go on to bring in your inspiration that we did up front, and that inspiration will now lead to your story. So remember, you can mix and match the elements in this template, but eventually somebody's going to want to know about you, and that's why I've put it in your project goals here. You can talk about what you draw inspiration from, your themes, issues, and life experiences if you want, and you can then talk about what your main goals are for the project. Are your main goals funding goals, partnership goals? As producers, of course, this is a priority for you to communicate to your listener what you want from them. So at some point, you are going to need to get that into your pitch. It's often best when you're talking about what you want from the listener to put that in after you've hooked them with the story. So even if you tell who you are up front and then use that as a launching pad to talk about inspiration, to then get into story, to then get into talking about characters or world, to then to talk about a little about what's unique, or then definitely hit what you want from them. Your main goals are funding, partnership. You know what they are. You are the producer. Now let's go on to a little bit more with what your strategy for production is. Your strategy, my strategy for production is, and you can say, is it, you could talk about your casting or your location intentions. You can talk about production dates that you have. You can talk about specifically your development goals. You can talk about more specific fundraising strategies that you have. You've been very good in the materials that you've shown and some of the other people who picked you. You've told us what some of those are, okay? So definitely get those in as well, what your strategy for production is. It will make people understand a little bit more about what your role is as the producer. Now, this last part of it I'm excited to meet with you because is a little bit of what we call out here buttering people up, which is telling people what they know about them. Perhaps you've met with a producer and you like their particular storytelling sensibility, or you like their taste, or you like their expertise. So you don't necessarily have to bring that into the pitch, but in your conversation with the people you're pitching to, if you have something that you particularly like about their way into projects, you can certainly mention it so that they understand why you particularly want to collaborate with them. And you can then seal it by reminding them about what your project offers. Maybe it offers a unique point of a fresh take on the genre, meaning something we've never seen in this genre, or an inspirational message. Now, I want to remind you that you do not have to put absolutely everything in this template into your pitch. I realize there's a lot here. You can pick and choose what works best for you. I gave you the whole template so that you can fill it all out and then see what elements you want to elaborate upon. I would stress to you how important logline and those key plot points are. I do think it's important for people to get a sense of your story. But jumping to your own particular production strategy or your production goals can be equally important in a pitching situation like you find yourself in with people who can fund your project or distribute your project. And I know that you talked with other speakers that stressed that. So just because I stress story, which is my expertise, doesn't mean that you should let go of some of the production as well. You only have a few minutes, and because you only have a few minutes, you're going to have to decide which elements to focus on. And the only way to do that is by practicing a little bit even before I see you. You have 5 minutes. Is reminding me of that. So like I said, practice some of these elements. You can just practice reading off of the template, and what that gives you. You may actually find that you actually have time to spare, so you can elaborate on some of these, okay? But I would hate for you to run out of time, okay? So we are at an hour and a half in. That gives another half hour for you to give me any questions that you have. There's a lot here, and I'm absolutely open to hearing from everybody, and I will answer your questions as best that I can. Does anybody have any questions for me at all? Please raise your hands if you do. Okay. Tell us, what is your question? I have a doubt about the part of character breakdown. In particular, the description of your main character. Okay, so you want me to look at it. Okay. I'm looking at the last thing you sent me. Continues to follow Angel and Pineda. When you're describing your main character, oh, here we go, I'm sorry. My main character is Angel. He's a kind and unusual retired boxer who came back boxing to see his family again. I think kind, sweet boxer who came back to... Now, I think that this works. I think that the unusual part is a little vague, okay? But you can say he's a kind and retired boxer, and that would be enough. I think Kind Retired Boxer does it for me because when we think about boxers, we usually think aggressive, but you're saying kind here. And as a retired boxer, that gives me a sense of his profession and stage of life. So I think that that works well. Okay? Other questions? If you have another question, just raise your hand. Okay, Mariana? And you were wondering? Okay, so you have financial goals? Okay. So you have financial goals, but also finding a sales agent. Should I make it about one or the other? No, I would integrate both. So when you're talking about um, here, when you're talking about my main goals are, you can actually say both. Your main goals, you could even give the premise up front. You could say my main goals are both financial and geared toward the sale. Financial goals for this amount of money in this kind of way. For my sales goals, I'm hoping for a sales agent who will represent me in this kind of a way. Okay? So you can definitely give both. Okay? I hope that answers your question. Okay, great. Any other questions? Okay, any other questions? I'm Mauricio. Okay. Mauricio, what is your question? Can you use a different genre movie to describe your film when you say in the vein of? Actually, I would say no in this case. The only reason to say in the vein of is to give a sense of genre and tone. It's not to give a sense of the premise. So I would be more interested in something that that matches in genre than I am in something that matches an idea. Okay? And the reason for this, again, is so that we get sort of a sense of the look and the feel of it. Okay? Somebody else just had a question and they went by me. Okay, so whoever's hand just went up, please feel free to give me your question. Okay. Okay. And Mauricio? I know Mariana had a question. Okay, Mauricio asks, when we state a genre, is it okay to say dramatic comedy or just go with comedy? This is a tough one. Out here, we have started to use the word dramedy. I'm not sure if that's a term that translates over there. I think instead I would pick drama or comedy, but you could say it has comedic or dramatic elements. So you could say it's a drama with comedic elements, or you could say it's a comedy with uh, dramatic elements. That way, we understand that there's one genre, but it has a certain depth underneath, or it has a certain lightness underneath. Okay, Sometimes you can say things like dark comedy or romantic drama, and that also lends itself to being more specific. Okay. All right, let's go to, oh, you're welcome. Okay. Mariana asks, at the beginning, is it okay if I talk about what drove me to the project instead of what inspired it? When I came on board, the project had a bit of development, so I wasn't involved in the primary idea, but was drawn to it immediately. Absolutely. And this goes for all of you out there. Since you're producers, it may have been that that the writer was inspired to write it, but you were inspired to become the producer because of how you felt after reading it. And that is absolutely fine. Yes. Okay. Okay. I haven't. Any other questions? Any other questions from anybody? Okay, Mariana? Ah, the ending. I always struggle. Okay. Okay, here's the thing. Here's the good news for you, Mariana, and for all of you. In the pitch template, okay, that the plot summary ends with the third act strategy and the consequences. Now they must do this thing or face consequences, but it doesn't say how it ends. If you leave people on a cliffhanger, now they have to do something or face consequences, we won't know if they succeed or if they fail. And in my opinion, that is absolutely fine. It's more interesting to give a sense of what the strategy is going in than to say, and there's a big happy ending where everybody learns. To be honest, I think that sometimes brings the pitch down. So I would much rather that you ended on a cliffhanger. So it does not need an inspirational ending. It may not need ending at all. Okay? All right, we're going to go to, yeah, great. Great indeed. Okay, go to Mauricio. Okay. Mauricio asks, will we get one-on-one sessions with me, and how long are they? Oh my goodness, you are going to be so sick of me, Mauricio. We get a lot of one-on-one sessions. This is just a class to launch you so that when I see you, you've got a pitch prepared, and then we can target the pitch so that it's more specific to your needs. Okay, and Gabrielle asks, yeah, I look
Sorry,
forward to it too. Yes.
let me just add something there for Mauricio's question. You'll have on Thursday, you have a pitch rehearsal session, right? With Pilar
Yes.
and Matias and with Deborah, Hector, and Diego. And then on Friday, you have one-on-one meetings, 20 minutes one-on-one meetings with each of them. Okay.
Thank you so much. Okay, this is Gabrielle asks, is it okay to make a reference about previous movies we have made when introducing the project? Okay, I wouldn't do this in the vein of, but it is absolutely fine to, when you're introducing yourself, let's go to that part of the pitch template for a second. In the project goals, okay? I'm a writer-director who specializes in genre and medium. If you want to do this at the very top of your pitch, introduce who you are, what your specialty is, and talk about some of the movies that you've already made, assuming that they are already things that you can brag about a little. Movies that have already been out or have had distribution, then it could be a great way to introduce yourself and your writer. I'm the producer of such and such that was in theaters for this long or won this contest, that's fine. But if you're describing your project and simply comparing it to one of your own projects, that doesn't give your listener any point of reference unless they've seen that project. So I wouldn't do it for in the vein of, but I would do it for showing off a little of your credits up front so that the listener understands they're in the hands of somebody who has a particular specialty. I hope that makes sense. Good. Excellent. Thank you. Anybody else for questions? All right. Oops. Okay. Okay. If there are no other questions, um, all I want to add is how you pitch. So I am always concerned about the content of the pitch, and that's why I give you this template. But I do want you to remember that ultimately this will be a fairly intimate experience. In the past, you have pitched to, or in the past, the way that they've done this is pitching in front of a whole group of people. But in this case, I believe this is going to be slightly more intimate, where you get to pitch to only a few people at a time. That allows for more of a conversational approach. So I want you to remember that what you're doing basically is telling somebody about a movie that you're so excited about that you just watched and that you have to convince somebody else to see. Just like if you were in the movie theater and you just saw something incredible and you have to tell them to go out and rush to the movie theater. But in this case, this is your movie. So I want you to pitch it with the same kind of passion and excitement that you would if you were telling somebody to rush out to a movie theater and see a movie before it closes. Okay? So even though I'm taking you step by step through the plotting, that doesn't mean that you have to be robotic in how you tell the story. Tell it with passion and enthusiasm. The person who won last year was incredibly enthusiastic in the way that she pitched. She made everybody want to be part of that project because she herself was so excited about it. And yet she was excited in a very focused way where she still told the story. Sometimes people just babble on about how great it is and forget to tell the story. Some people tell the story and forget to make it exciting. Your job is to do both and to communicate that to your listener. And like I said, remember, this is just a passionate conversation you're having with someone. You don't have to worry that you get everything perfect. If you get that log line out there, remember you've gotten the main idea out there. If you've put your production goals out there, remember you told them what you want from them. Even if you forget everything else, once you open it up to questions, if you have some solid answers to give people when they ask you questions, you'll still be in good shape. And some of the questions they ask you might be found in some of these talking points here. So don't feel that you have to memorize every single one of your talking points. Maybe know some of them, and then if they ask you some of these things, okay, you can respond. So, those would be my final thoughts about your pitch. Okay, is to know what you want to say, but after you know why you love it and bring in some of that passion. If you have someone with you, if you have a writer with you, or you have a partner with you, sometimes one of you is better at conveying the story and one of you is better at conveying the passion. So sometimes that person tells the story and the other person interjects with some of these great scenes or set pieces, or then goes on to talk about the financial end. You can divide up elements of your pitch in this way, and in that way you have both voices that are in the pitch, and it helps the listener understand why why you're exciting as a team. So you can practice this with both of you. One person doesn't just have to handle the pitch. Are there any other questions before I sign off? Any other questions at all? You can raise your hand. Okay. Oh, Mauricio says, Pilar, this was fantastic. Thank you so much. Eugenia says, thank you so much. See you in Cartagena. Mariana, thank you very much. See you soon. Felipe, thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you to Jorge and to Martin. Uh, gracias to you as well. And forgive me in advance for my terrible Spanish, because I only speak English, but I'll try and brush up a little bit. Thank you, Teles. I really appreciated your contribution. And Gabriel.
Okay, everyone, thank you very much. I think this was a great session, and it's a great start to get ready for Cartagena. It's going to be tough. It's a very competitive environment, but it's also a very great opportunity for each of you to learn from each other. So on Thursday session, which is the rehearsal, you will be able to give some feedback to your partners as well. You know, so that's a good thing. You know, that to receive advice from the people who are right next to you, not only your lecturers, but also from your partners. So just a reminder that Thursday we start at 9 a.m. In Cartagena. Okay, so you all have your agendas. If you have any question about that, please just send me an email. And if there's any other question you might have, just send an email anyway. Okay, Pilar, that was amazing. Thank you very much. Sorry you had to wake up so early there in LA.
You owe me.
I owe you big time. Don't worry. I'll wake up to you in Cartagena with a good mojito. Don't worry.
Okay, that's a deal. That's a deal. All right. I look forward to seeing all of you. Thank you so much, Juan Pablo.
Okay, thank you, Pilar. Bye bye. Take care. Adiós a todos.
Bye.
Muchas gracias.